Bonsoir à toutes et à tous et bienvenue à la soirée d'ouverture du festival Knowledge for the City, organisé conjointement par la revue Brussels Studies, le réseau de recherche Brussels Studies Institute et son initiative de formation et de débat public, la Brussels Academy. La soirée se déroulera principalement en anglais. Toutefois, lorsque l'on fera circuler le micro à la fin de la discussion de nos panélistes, nous prendrons volontiers des questions en français ou en néerlandais.
Goedenavond iedereen. Welkom op de openingsavond van ons festival Knowledge for the City, samen georganiseerd door het tijdschrift Brussels Studies, het onderzoeksnetwerk Brussels Studies Institute en het initiatief voor debat en vorming Brussels Academy. De avond zal voornamelijk plaatsvinden in het Engels, maar wanneer de micro straks rondgaat in de zaal, mogen jullie uiteraard jullie vragen stellen in het Frans of in het Nederlands.
We are glad to welcome you in Beaux-Arts Studio and to be part of the program City Talk. Tonight, we will talk about the production and sharing of knowledge about and within cities. These topics correspond to the City Talk's ambition to question urban realities and challenges from several perspectives and with guest speakers. We would like to thank everyone in Beaux-Arts who made this evening possible, especially considering the restrictions they had to adapt to as a cultural institution. Thanks also to Sid and Amel, who made the live stream and recording possible tonight. Last but not least, this evening and the 3 events that will follow would not take place without the financial support of Innovaris, the public organization that funds and supports research and innovation in the Brussels capital region. We also thank the other funders that support our daily activities and this festival. The idea behind this series of events is to reflect on our core missions as a scientific journal, a research network, and a platform for debate and education existing for more than 10 years. Looking at Brussels with an interdisciplinary focus, we aim to foster research on the social, cultural, economic, or environmental challenges of the contemporary city. Our mission is also to share the results of these studies inside and outside academia through the journal Brussels Studies and the events organized by the Brussels Academy. The festival is also a way to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the journal Brussels Studies and the decade of the Brussels Studies Institute and the Brussels Academy. Last Monday, Brussels Studies published its 165th paper. All our texts are published in 3 languages, French, Dutch, English, and they address a large audience from different disciplines by avoiding jargon or unnecessary technical terms. As you can see on the slides, our 281 authors have diverse disciplinary backgrounds, and the journal favors interdisciplinary research. This is the case for the general collection of papers, but also for the other collection we have developed, synopsis and position papers that we edit in collaboration with the Brussels Studies Institute. Thanks to its integration on the platform Open Edition, it's in institutional indexes such as the VABB in Flanders, for instance, and in the database Scopus, among other things, Brussels Studies has increased its visibility and its recognition within the academic world. Our readers are not all from academia, though. They include many members of local administration or associations. Each month, subscribers discover the new publication through the newsletter, but the graph here shows that papers continue to raise interest a long time after they were published. On average, each paper in Brussels Studies is downloaded or read in full almost 9,000 times. During our 15 years of existence, we also collected stories on the impact that some papers had on local discussion, citizens' empowerment, or parliamentary debates. To this day, the journal has been mentioned 173 times in regional or federal assemblies. This local impact of a scientific journal also makes Brussels Studies special and is crucial for sharing scientific knowledge beyond scholars' community.
Thank you, Tatiana, for this introduction. So, as Tatiana mentioned, we are organizing this at the occasion of our anniversaries. And so the Brussels Studies Institute is, as Tatiana mentioned, a research network. It's the inter-university platform for research on Brussels, and it exists for 10 years now, for over 10 years even. Briefly on the missions of the Brussels Studies Institute, for those who wouldn't be familiar with what we do. So our main aims are firstly to develop interdisciplinary, inter-university and multi-actor research projects on Brussels and for the sake of Brussels. Our second aim is to function as a contact platform for all those interested in integrated research on Brussels. Furthermore, we want to centralize and make accessible the research that exists and that is emerging on Brussels. And lastly, we want also to help disseminate the research that happens on Brussels by organizing study days and also publishing in close collaboration with Brussels Studies. BSI started as an initiative of the three Brussels universities, VUB, ULB and Université Saint-Louis Bruxelles, and so 10 years ago, and it has been joined in 2019 by two other universities, UC Louvain and KU Leuven, who also have campuses in Brussels. So we've become this very large network, and in all those years now, today, we can say that 57 research centers are a member of the Brussels Studies Institute, and that represents more or less 350 researchers affiliated at 8 higher education institutions. We have conducted or developed more than 50 projects on which, on average, 6.8 researchers, in which 6.8 researchers were involved. We've had also more than 50 conference-like activities organized in all this time, and the Brussels Studies Institute has become a crucial actor in the production and dissemination of research on Brussels. As Tatiana mentioned also, we are also celebrating the 9th anniversary of the Brussels Academy. Brussels Academy is BSI's initiative for public debate and training. It organizes public lectures, debates and trainings in different forms, as you can see on the picture that is displayed on the slide, in various venues and locations across the city, and it thereby aims to share academic knowledge about the city and to confront it with the lived experiences of citizens and civil society organizations. Convinced that it is important to inform and engage in a permanent dialogue with citizens and civil society regarding the existing knowledge about the city, it organizes all its activities for free. Since its creation in 2013, it has organized more than 550 activities and has reached this way thousands of people, and it participates in the sharing of knowledge about today's urban realities in Brussels. So now Tatiana will say something about the activities.
Yes, so after tonight and during the next months, 3 more events will take place, and they will be organized in a bilingual way in French and Dutch, not in English this time. And so we will still have 2 study days, one on local publication and its challenges, and the other one on citizen participation, and a closing participative event on new places and networks for knowledge. So before introducing our keynote speaker of tonight, we will first watch a short video recorded by Barbara Tracht, who is the Secretary of State of the Brussels Capital Region responsible for economic transition and scientific research. She could not make it tonight, but she offered to record this message to start the evening and express her interest for what will be discussed.
Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Goedenavond iedereen. Merci pour votre invitation et pour l'opportunité de participer à cette soirée d'ouverture du festival Knowledge in the City. Les 15 ans d'existence de la revue en Open Access Brussels Studies et le 10e anniversaire du Brussels Studies Institute cette année me semblent constituer un excellent prétexte pour organiser ce festival, pour réfléchir ensemble à nouveau aux questions de production et de diffusion des connaissances sur, à et pour Bruxelles. Ik ben verheugd om Caroline Nevejan als keynote-spreker te hebben. Ook al delen wij met Amsterdam experimenten op het gebied van kennisverspreiding, zoals onze donut-analyses, is er in Brussel geen equivalent voor haar functie als Chief Science Officer. mais je suis sûre que son intervention servira néanmoins d'inspiration pour nous toutes et tous. Cette soirée d'ouverture a introduit des moments de réflexion et d'échanges variés, abordant des questions centrales pour Bruxelles, créer, partager les connaissances, les savoirs, les mobiliser pour imaginer et réimaginer la ville et la région de demain. Il s'agit de questions qui sont au cœur de la réflexion politique, et en particulier en ce qui me concerne, avec mes compétences en matière de recherche scientifique. Il est utile de le rappeler, dans cette compétence recherche qui m'est dévolue, nous avons mis l'accent sur l'identification précoce de l'utilisation qui sera faite des résultats et des connaissances générées. Nous considérons en effet cet élément comme un fondement essentiel à la pertinence et à la mise en œuvre des projets que nous soutenons. Dat is in ieder geval de aanpak die is gekozen voor de uitwerking van het Brussels gewestelijk innovatieplan voor de periode 2021-2027. Le point de départ pour déterminer les axes stratégiques prioritaires en matière de recherche et d'innovation a clairement été l'identification des enjeux et des défis sociétaux de notre région, défis auxquels il convient de répondre. Au-delà de la prise en compte des forces existantes de l'écosystème bruxellois d'innovation, c'est la capacité à répondre à ces défis tels que le climat, l'utilisation des ressources, la santé, l'inclusion ou la mobilité qui ont guidé ce processus. La finalité des recherches occupe donc un rôle central et implique de porter une attention particulière sur différents aspects qui deviennent par la même occasion essentiels, comme le contexte, les porteurs de projets ou encore le public cible des résultats. Tous ces aspects sont mobilisés par la revue Brussels Studies, le BSI et Brussels Academy. Conjointement, ils participent à mobiliser des équipes pluridisciplinaires, à développer des liens avec les sphères non académiques, à développer des réseaux, à diffuser les connaissances produites auprès des décideurs mais aussi auprès des citoyens. Op mijn niveau streef ik ernaar om het kader voor de financiering van onderzoek in Brussels gewest te laten évolueren. Des outils de soutien innovants sont lancés, d'autres sont renforcés. Ils stimulent la co-création de savoirs nouveaux, la collaboration intersectorielle, interrégionale, internationale, l'expérimentation en laboratoire vivant ou encore l'innovation sociale. En bref, nous voulons démocratiser la production des savoirs, la capacité d'innover, favoriser les coproductions scientifiques impliquant académiques et citoyens, administration et entreprises. Les enjeux qui seront abordés à l'occasion du festival sont passionnants et plus que jamais d'actualité. J'espère que les travaux que vous mènerez à cette occasion permettront d'identifier les freins, mais surtout les opportunités qui permettront de concrétiser notre volonté que la recherche menée contribue effectivement à la prospérité de la région et au bien-être de ses habitants. Encore merci et une excellente soirée à toutes et à tous. Nogmaals bedankt en ik wens iedereen een uitstekende avond.
So, I'm very happy that I can introduce now to you all Professor Caroline Nevejan. We are very honored that Professor Caroline Nevejan accepted our invitation to act as a keynote speaker at this opening night of our festival. Professor Nevejan holds a PhD in social sciences and is currently affiliated to the Amsterdam Institute for Social Science Research of the University of Amsterdam, the UvA, where she conducts research on designing urban experience. As you already heard, she also holds the position of Chief Science Officer of the City of Amsterdam. In her role as Chief Science Officer, she orchestrates research between the municipality and the different universities in the city. With her team, she ensures that civil servants and researchers find each other around specific research questions. Moreover, Professor Nevejan is one of the initiators of the City Science Initiative of the European Commission. So I think I've briefly introduced Caroline, and I would now like to invite you for your keynote lecture.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I'll take my seat. Can I take the glass of water? Yeah, thank you. Start my presentation. I am so honored to be here because the Brussels Institute and the Brussels Studies Journal and the Brussels Academy are, like, for Amsterdam, an amazing example. You exist twice as long and you do so many more things than we do, but it's really impressive. And it's a great example also to see that you combine publication with designing research, with also outreach in the city. So I'm very happy with the very nice panel members here. You can always interrupt me, as you know. And that also counts for all of you. I am going to do 80 slides in 45 minutes, so be with me. And when I go too fast, just yell, yeah? And the idea is that I have several chapters. I will first talk about why cities are at the center of transition, and then you see the rest of the program. We go there from 1 to 6. This is a very important slide for me that I'm with this for the first time when I was early in my 20s. It's published in 1981. It's made by Salk, which is the inventor of the penicillin vaccine, and his son, child psychiatrist. And this is a graph which shows how world population goes. And I'm born sort of where the curve starts to go up, and we're now halfway. And in 2050, it's supposed to flatten out. And in evolutionary biology, this means that, as they argue, the values in the first period are very different than the values in the second period. So when we were with very little people on the planet, it was really about conquering, winning or losing. It was about competition, where in the new era, which will be there in 2050, it will be about collaboration, consensus, balancing out things. And we are the lucky ones who live in this very steep curve. So if any of you is confused, you are right. It's very confusing, our time. And it's very important to realize this, that it's not about certain people not knowing what is at stake. No, nobody knows what's at stake. So we have to work together to survive the next era. And it's a beautiful book. I can highly recommend it. This is a very nice group of people. It's Our World in Data. And they made this picture about the urban population and the rural population. And you see that in the last 100 years, up to the future, most people live in cities. So where before we were, hunter-gatherers and farmers, we are now city dwellers. And what's very interesting, the same group also made this picture. Things go really well with all of us. Poverty is declining, education is going up, literacy is going up, child mortality is going down, democracy is going up. So they sort of did the same graph, but they took the last 200 years. So we have reason to be optimistic, which you wouldn't think when you read the daily newspaper. Then there's another thing. We are quite brilliant as people, so we invented a new technology where we added the whole virtual layer to our daily existence. So we don't only meet, we also telephone, we also email, we also read books. And then, what you do in one communication space affects another. So an email affects how I will meet you. If I make a fight, I will not look at you very nice the next day. But actually, no one knows how it works. Quite confusing too. Also for all the civil servants, yeah? So people get really afraid to send an SMS. It would be very nice to say, I'm sorry, and it could be better. That can be used in court against you. So we all really don't know where we are and how we do it. And then the argument is, and I think this is very important to realize, that we go into a new paradigm of human experience. For a long time, it was the human being as measure of all things. Then it became the measurable human being, yeah? Blood pressure, how many are we? But now, with the internet, the invasive and pervasive internet, we have measurable humankind. Because TomTom tells me there's a traffic jam, I can adapt my behavior. So in real time, we can influence each other's behavior in a way that we cannot control. With algorithms, we do not know who makes them, but it affects us deeply. So the city has become a complex participatory system, where the social layer, the ICT, the infrastructure, roads, canals, bridges, electricity, connectivity, and the ecology are one system. and they interact. So an intervention on one layer affects all the other layers. When you put a road to a village, the village life changes. When internet arrives, suddenly you can find out about the price of the same bread in another village. So this changes completely how we live. And what's very important for, if you think about governance, that in a complex participatory system, the relation between causality, between a cause and the result, is changed. You can press a button here and something else will happen somewhere, but you don't know exactly what or how. So we're now in the third really very confusing, or fourth very confusing element of our time. It changes, it transforms the dynamics of power. So conquering or nurturing or following or contributing or making or personalizing, very different. And it asks a very big question on trust. Do we design for high trust or do we design for low trust? Do we want participatory forms or do we want surveillance and control? And it's very easy to say we go high trust, but actually a lot of people also like low trust. So this is a very big issue also for governments, how to deal with it. And how equality, for example, plays into this, or justice plays into this, how you call it, continuum. So yeah, I'm not going to go into this. So I want just to say the fact that we are in a new time, which is extremely confusing, with rapid change, and cities are at the center of this transition. And 80% of the people in Europe live in cities. And that's very interesting with the European Commission. They talk to nation states. Well, we live in the city. We in the city feel the pandemic together. Not in the parliament building, not in the ministry. It's in the streets where we are. So in the accumulating and accelerating crisis, scale and speed of change happen as never before. This was chapter 1. Any comments? Panel? No? We all agree?
Many, but please continue.
Okay, okay. Anyone in the hall? You can always stand up. Okay, then, so in these confusing times, what is interesting, and I first talk about my own position, Amsterdam is one of the many cities that invented or initiated this idea of a chief science officer. So like Brussels, we have many universities, hogescholen, artistic, we also have a lot of, how you call it in English, craft, you know, where you not have high education, but middle education, low education, where people know how to work with the materials. The region is 2.5 million people, and we have really a lot of students, like 25% of our population is actually people who are studying or are learning. As chief science officer, when I came, I have a history as a cultural entrepreneur before I came back into science. I said, if you bring policy and research together in the city, you need design. You design the intervention, you design the street, you design how you make the school or the hospital or how you live together, how you build the house. As a chief science officer, I gather and orchestrate all the research that's done in the city, and that's much more than any one of us ever thought. Only for Amsterdam, we found out that we do over like 200, 300, 400 studies a year, really a lot. I match like the Brussels Studies Institute does. I bring also a lot of people together to start and help them to articulate their research question. We inspire and advise, and we have a publication platform. And that's where you can learn from us. Only one thing in the many things. Because, well, at first we do these things, yeah, there is also a lot of encounters, shared studies, pilots, labs, PhD trajectories. We now have over 15 civil servants who are in the PhD trajectory. Of course, a lot of proposals, and we have several institutes where we participate. It's really important to realize that if you do research in the city, which we now call city science, since we work with the Commission, that if you do research in the city, it affects all the steps of the research process. From the agenda setting to the methodology choices to how you valorize, how you evaluate, how you publish. And this awareness is really important to understand, because for a long time there is a very big debate about academic freedom and that academia and politics should be apart. While the urban challenges that we face today demand collaboration. And not only in Amsterdam, we see this happening in many cities at the moment. So now I want to show you this little open research thing. Now I'm going to close the... I'm doing the thing that... Close this one. Yeah. And it's ready for me here, waiting. I want to show you a little film. So we started this platform because we have so many interests and so many people who like to collaborate and not like to collaborate. I mean, like Brussels has formally a confusing situation. We have an as confusing situation, but mostly it's informal. But we also have universities who don't like each other, and then the next day they do like each other, and one faculty works together and the other one doesn't. And when I became chief science officer, I thought, you know, I cannot get into these politics. I just have to make a new reality. And this new reality is this little film I'm going to show you. Oh, now I lost it again. Wait, sorry. I had it. Wait, it was here? No? Oh, here it is. Yeah, there it goes. Hello. Yes, come. Yes. Good. There it goes.
So much research is done in Amsterdam. So much knowledge created. Researchers, civil servants, and designers are working hard to understand complex problems. Problems covering all kinds of topics and disciplines. We already collaborate a lot, but still, do you recognize this? That feeling that we're missing out on each other's work? While we're researching, we often stick to our own narrow lane, just doing our own thing.
Yeah, so? I'm doing useful work, right?
Yes, and you do it well. You're working on important research for the city. But could it be that in another organisation or city district, people are working on exactly the same issues, and you might be missing out on useful information and collaborations? Just imagine, you're about to start work on a specific theme. Wouldn't it be useful if you had direct access to all the existing relevant research? Well, that's why there is Open Research, one central place where knowledge and all the research on Amsterdam and its metropolitan area is collected.
Oh?
Here, researchers, policymakers and designers can easily find each other. Keywords make new connections visible, for example, relating to water, energy, youth unemployment, transport and food. With just one click, you can see who in the city is working on similar topics. In online workspaces, researchers from different organisations can share their research. So, get on your bike and grab a coffee with the neighbours.
Yeah, but why would I give away all my research? What's in it for me?
Well, wouldn't it be great if colleagues in Amsterdam can easily find or use your research?
Yeah.
Editors bring relevant research to the platform. They help make your research visible and link it to other work on the same topic. That way, you can easily find people relevant to your work. Research makes a difference in the city. So, go to Open Research and discover what is going on in the city. Dare to share. Open Research.
Very real, right? Dare to share. Okay. So this platform we started 2 years ago, and we now have sort of 2,000 visitors every week. We have 150 editors in all the different departments of the municipality and of the faculties and the research institutes. And we find that more and more people find each other through the platform. And what's very nice is that also now the city is publishing its research via this platform. So also civil servants now get a name. So you find out which civil servants works on energy transition or on youth unemployment. And in a way, people were hesitant to have a name as a civil servant because, you know, you're supposed to be only behind the mayor and the alderman. But actually, that's only a very small group for which this is very important. And it's also very nice for civil servants because they work very hard on certain issues. So they certainly get a profile and they can also build upon that profile. So far it works. This was the second chapter. We're good in time. City science. So what's interesting that 5 years ago I was appointed city science officer. And Brussels Institute was ahead of the game, of course. I don't know where Tatjana and so. There you guys are. Very good. And Erik Korijn is here. And Peter Bos is here, who was part of founding this city science initiative. Because I thought if I am now a city science officer in Amsterdam, and that was decided before I came. How is it in other cities? And we found that in many cities, actually something like a chief science officer was started. Also in Hamburg and in Marseille and in Milano and in Rome and in Thessaloniki and in Cluj and in Warsaw and in Stockholm and in Barcelona and in Madrid. So many cities. So we asked these people to come to Brussels and we had a meeting and we said, so how is it for you? And what do you run into? What do you see is really important? So the first thing is that we all are there, as we think, because we work on urban challenges. The challenges are now so profound, because the times are changing so fast, that civil servants or people who are in charge or in power or responsible for making things happen, they need research to be able to go and to know what to do. We also noticed that for all of us, the knowledge sharing is really fundamental. And that you connect one person to another person. We have like 10 people working on electrical poles for, cars and boats, and they don't know each other. Or 20 people working on obesitas, and they don't talk to the people who design the streets so children can play. So these new relations that are necessary because of the challenges was actually in the heart of all our work. So this transdisciplinarity, this interdisciplinarity, what also the Brussels Studies Institute is doing, that's also what we all do. We are the guys who have the little oil can, and when the radars stop, we come and we throw some oil in the radars. And then, is it radar? I don't know. The wheels that go around. We make the wheels go around with our oil. So we decided that this is very important, and also the Commission was very much supporting us, the GRC and the RTD and DG Regio. And we also invited all the networks, and we invited different DGs, as you see, a lot of them. And we realized, because we don't talk money, we don't talk funding, we talk about agenda. We talk about wanting an interface as a city to the Commission, because the Commission makes the laws and defines most of the conditions in which we live now. And then we found out that actually there was no other space where people freely can exchange ideas. So it's always, directed by interest. So this became very important for us. So then we got a website from the Commission and the GRC. Here you see we did several workshops. We were mapping our how we worked. Yeah, this is our mapping exercise. It was very nice to do. And then we also found about 5 people, between 5, 6, 7 people. So it's really a small group that's very flexible, that can easily change. We all thought we work between universities, we work with business, we work with culture, and we work with, of course, municipality and different layers of governance. And we all found that design is so really important to make the results of research and the results of policymaking visible and accessible. So we wrote a letter to the Commission. We said, we need to have better interfaces, we have to learn, there's a new paradigm happening. Please come help us. So these are the mayors sending a letter, and then the Commission answers, 3 commissioners. And then we started with a new thing, which is the urban regional research ecology. So if we want to work together as a city, and if you want to handle these challenges, and if you are a Brussels Institute and a Brussels Studies Journal and an academy, what is it that you need to really do your work and to really help solve these challenges? So currently, this is a draft. This is the first time I show it, but it's the work of different cities. It's also Christian Fernando Ayona, Panagiotis Banidis, Thomas Jacob, Anne-Sophie Holstein, Jean-Charles Ladic from Marseille. They all contributed really to this thinking, and also the larger group of 50 cities contributed, where we say that we need to enhance the resilience in cities, given all the accumulating and accelerating crises. We need new methodologies, and this is a very big thing. We don't have the methodologies for city science. We have to learn and collaborate between cities, and most of my colleagues won't have time to collaborate because the daily needs are so intense that you don't have time to talk to a colleague of another city. But we need to do it because we don't have time to invent the wheel 20 times. And then there's a very big thing, which was the talk of my talk. A lot of scientists are very good in making blueprints. They tell us this is how the world is. But as a city, we are messy. Yeah, so I talked, for example, to 8 energy professors who know, oh, that's how you do energy transition. You just put this and this in the ground. I said, yes, we don't own the ground as a city. So your whole blueprint doesn't work. And that happens in a lot of fields, that the blueprints that are made by science in a very specific, very true way have to interact with a messy city where people are diverse, where, you know, there's pollution, there is uprising, there's many things happen. A lot of different knowledge stakeholders, disciplines, experts, different kinds of engagement, on and offline. So this is a very big issue. And what we see is that in this issue, we see a lot of emerging communities of practice that are not acknowledged often by the policymakers. And this alertness to the emerging communities of practice, you know, whether it's a street or a group of musicians, Lane will talk about it, who change the public space, or whether it's a group of people around the school who change the square. We have to start to recognize these. And this is theory and practice-based. It's sharing a sense of urgency. It's accepting responsibility. And it's also committed to shared values for design. Well, then we get this crisis, and I read some of the reports from the Commission, but also in the Netherlands of the scientific boards, because of the pandemic. And we have apparently 3 kinds of crisis. We have the acute crisis, the chronic crisis, and the predicted crisis. And it's very different how we deal with them. But what's interesting in the pandemic, and I think the same in Belgium, it was all dealt with on the national level and on the international level. It was not dealt with on the local level. We were just like a military organization. Huh? And while people live in the cities, and while in the cities there is a lot of knowledge about the details, here you see the advice of all these boards, we have the communities of practice in the cities. We have the interdependence there as a force for resilience. Also because you know the devil is in the detail, you know which street there's a problem, you can anticipate what's happening. But that knowledge is not used so far. So that's why we think we need an urban, regional research ecology, where it's not just the academy, the journal, and the Brussels Studies Institute. It's about all 3 together, but you need more partners around it. So to make the ecology go, that we can have the right knowledge at the right time with the right person to solve the question that we are facing. And what's very important, it has to be transparent. So newcomers are always welcome. It's not a little group in an office who decides what we're going to do. We have to learn a new kind of transparency. Otherwise, we exclude people structurally. So this is now our new proposal. I'm really curious what you will think. We have values, because it's a complex system, self-organization. So if we all share the same value, we can all do our own thing in the same direction. We need to share research for democracy. We need to do evidence-based policy making. And societal impact in the city is important for the universities. And we design for planet, people, and profit. There are dynamics in the urban regional research ecology. We inspire advice, we connect and collaborate. That's what also we do, and also you do. Most city science officers do these too. But to facilitate and to implement is something else. To document and publish, work in progress, and to share it, very hard. To learn and test between cities, we don't know how it works. And to include and control, quite a big dilemma in many issues of the city that we are facing. So then we still said, okay, what are the sort of elements in the organization you need? And you need to have this research capacity in the management, whether it's the mayor and the alderman, or whether it's the boss of the GGD, or we need people to be aware that research has its own dynamic and can contribute to the challenges. So formal agreements between university and city, or different departments of the city. We have structured collaborations in ateliers, centers, institutes, temporary in living labs, pilots and projects. And then the data. We harvest structurally data, you harvest structurally data, Eurostat harvests data, but we all do it in our own way. So the interchanging between the data sets. Currently, we cannot even exchange the databases of who owns which house. We have such different standards in the different European countries that we cannot do that. So it's very hard, for example, if you want to tackle the mafia, you have to know who owns which house, because there's a big investment with mafia. We can't do it, because we have too many different standards in data. This is a very big issue. And there are more issues, which we will hear from Peter later. So then you can also make a talking tool, yeah, where you can talk with your colleagues. So who is taking care of the values? How is it going with the dynamics? What is actually the municipality doing? What is the university contributing? What are the bachelor students doing or the PhDs doing? Yeah, so this is the urban regional research ecology. This is sort of the new idea that the report will be done, I think, in 4 weeks. And the last 2 chapters are about how we can collaborate internationally on local challenges. And the last one is an extra little epilogue as a present from me to you. So this is done in the context of the Biennale of Architecture in the last in 20 and 21. And the question was, how will we live together? Which is a beautiful question to ask. It was pandemic times, so we couldn't go to Venice. This is Venice during the pandemic. No cruise ships, the dolphins were around. It was amazing. They were all, like us, we were all locked up. And you know, they said we were going to be this Biennale thing, and then you cannot go. I mean, this is really a bummer, yeah? So I thought, we know we have the internet, so we can do something. So what we did is that I got a partner in Venice, which is We Are Here Venice. It's an activist group with very diverse people in it. And we made teams. Because the very important thing is, this is the most important slide maybe for the whole presentation, which is change is possible. This was just before the pandemic and after 6 weeks of pandemic Wuhan, and you see that all the pollution on the NASA satellite images is gone. Only 6 weeks. Quite impressive. And the nice thing is that the We Are Here Venice people just think like me. They all think change is possible. So even if we cannot go there, we will work together on the local things in Venice, based on what do we need. And that's a very big difference maybe between research and policy making or citizens in the street. It really is about what do we need. And the question, what do we need in the next decade, is really crucial. So here we are. You can go to Openvision Amsterdam. You go for values for survival. So I wanted to find what is the new value that we need in the next decade. Because the climate, you know, the temperature goes up 2 degrees. We get a whole new ecology. We don't know if we as human species will survive. And we made 3 cahiers, and there were 100 scientists and artists all participating. And why do I show it? We had the first cahier, so well, very important. No one can understand all scripts of Amsterdam or Venice, so we made a state of the art, but in such a way that no one can understand it all, because that's our life. We can't understand it all. And then we made this second cahier with the exploratorium. So you see on the right there how it started. So we made 11 teams. In every team there was someone present from Venice. And in every team there were scientists and artists from really around the world. And every team had a challenge that they were addressing, a local challenge. So we worked with the Hortus Botanicus, we worked with the Green Triangle, we worked with the Laguna, where the wars go. So we had a lot of local challenges of Venice that we were all focusing our attention on. Biodiversity, big issue. And then you see, you can go for the content, go to the website, you can see it all. But what was interesting, that each of these groups invented a new methodology of working together. So they all worked with people they did not know and they could not meet. And they invented new ways to work together while making a difference in Venice. And I think this is so beautiful. There's another reason change is possible, and we can fix it, we can do it, because we invent on the way, on the fly, when we need to communicate, how we can do it. So these are these images of all these beautiful collaborations. And now I hope with the City Science Initiative and with the cities, for example, we make an exploratorium on urban heat. We focus, either we focus on one city, or we focus on one theme, and we make small teams on the different issues that I just, invented here. So a larger framework in which you work with small teams online. And then you can have local impact. And we can use this internet, this new arena, to work together, and it doesn't take so much time, and you don't have to travel, but you can learn between cities, yeah, on urban heat. And then what's very nice, as a city, I can participate in several exploratoria. I do one on urban heat, but I also do one on mental resilience, and I do one on children's obesitas, and one on acting monitors. I can, yeah, so you can sort of have a new way of how we orchestrate iterative design, research through design based on urban challenges. And then what was very interesting, so this fuel imagination, reinvent solidarity, is very nice that you put imagine in the title of the evening. I was very happy. Was that we found that in these groups, trust emerged because they created rhythms of creative exchanges. So each of this group had their own medium. So some, the old guys were phoning, and the young guys were on the Slack all the time. So they had different ways they worked, but they all created a rhythm between themselves. And then, that is my issue, so I was very happy to see that. So this is the last little bit, the last 5 minutes. And now you just listen and enjoy. Any comments, panel? No, not yet? Okay. Oh, I fear what they will say later. Okay, there we go. So this is about the last cahier, and this is about how rhythm actually is the new value for survival, as I found in this research project. So it's about tuning to rhythm of other. When life starts, rhythm is born. Anything that happens causes vibrations, and rhythm emerges. Vibrations of color, of patterns, of space. Oh, sorry. Small particles and faraway stars have rhythm. Animals have rhythm. Scale and speed matter. If you speed up the elephant rhythm, it becomes a rhythm of deer. Rhythm constitutes ecologies, also in cities. People live in rhythm, breathing, talking, fighting, dancing. When people dance, they find energy, sensuality, and courage. Algorithms create rhythm too. These are the traffic lights of Amsterdam, for example. People can tune to the rhythms of the world, like the surfer tunes to the waves. Making things is the result of rhythm in action. If you have to craft something, you need a rhythm, otherwise you cannot sustain it physically. Communication requires rhythm in interaction. Rhythms tune to each other. This is called entrainment. Clocks go in the same way. You cannot stop it. People can adapt to rhythm in other formats. We didn't know this before. And meet and act in mediation as never before. Sharing rhythm is a very powerful trigger for trust. The pandemic broke many patterns. Structures were trembling and rhythms vaporized. But it's really about to tune or not to tune. That's the question. Thank you. Kijk eens uit. Doe wat je want. Zo. Wacht even. Ja. Wat zei je? Ja, dat is mooi.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Marion Berzin. I'm the coordinator of the Brussels Academy project. I'm very pleased to moderate this debate tonight. on, as you see, different challenge about knowledge, including producing knowledge, but also sharing knowledge. And we will talk tonight maybe more on the Brussels context. So I will also invite you to react on what we're going to be to say tonight. And so let me first introduce you our panelists. First of all, I'm very pleased to welcome Leen de Spiegeler, who is the director of Metex, which is a production house made for and by musicians from different backgrounds. And you were also the former coordinator of the network, the Brussels Kustenhovenleeg. And I would also mention that because in 2016 you were a fellowship civil society in the Cosmopolis Research Center, and you produced with your colleague Sophie Alexandre a project what was called Cultural Policy in the Brussels Kaleidoscope. So thank you for being with us tonight. Let me then introduce Professor Dick Jacobs. You are a sociologist and a chairman of the Brussels Studies Institute since 2020. And you are specialized in the study of migration, integration policies, and in the sociology of education. We are also very happy to welcome Peter Verduk. Sorry for my pronunciation. I will try to make it better in the coming time. So you are a psychologist and a project manager at the Observatory of Health and Social, which is the study services of the regional or the Commission Communautaire Commune in Brussels. It's a tool which is at the service or want to participate at the elaboration and implementation of health and anti-poverty policies in the Brussels region. I also welcome, and last but not least, Martin Rosenfeld. You are a project manager and coordinator of Bruxelles Interenvironnement, which is an association that's federating inhabitants in Brussels, and you are active on urban, ecological, and social issues. So your association considers that a collective force of a reflection, information, experimentation, and proposal and protest in the Brussels context. So as you will see, our debate will be structured about producing knowledge, but also sharing knowledge. And we will add a third dimension, which is also very important, is participation regarding the production, but also regarding sharing to the others. So my first question will be addressed to maybe Dirk Jacobs. And I would like to know, and we would like to know, because we prepare it with Tatiana and Simon, how, if you see some common points between the Amsterdam's experiences, but also some differences. So we will first leave you the floor on these questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I would like to start to thank Caroline for the very rich and inspiring presentation and talk. And there are indeed a number of convergences. I won't really focus on the differences, but maybe on the joint challenges. But maybe let's first start with, it was very rich what you all said, so I'm making some choices here. But what resonated for me a lot was the idea to share, organize, and use the knowledge and the power that is present. And that we are in a situation where there's a lot of research being done, there's a lot of people who are willing to have a better future also for the city, but that all work in their organizations, their own settings, and do not necessarily come together. And I think the Brussels Studies Institute, its existence actually has been grown, and some of the pioneers are in the room here. Eric Corain, Michel Hubert, Serge Joma, and a lot of other people also in the context of the general states or the general streets. I don't know how you should say it in English.
United Streets of Brussels?
Yeah, has brought a lot of knowledge, both from academia but also civil society together, and there was a feeling we need to overcome frontiers, barriers that are there, And there are quite some in Brussels, maybe even more than in Amsterdam, as we have our linguistic divide, our institutions have their history in pillarization, and these are all obstacles that have to be taken. And I'm just a dwarf standing on the shoulders of the giants who created this process, and I think with the team of Brussels Studies Institute and also Brussels Academy and Brussels Studies, we can be a bit proud of having put this into motion. At the same time, there's a number of challenges, and I would also like to profit from the opportunity to pick your brain on how to deal with this. I think we're strong also in having adapted now in the context of the pandemic, and then indeed using online instruments and mobilizing this to facilitate new forms of cooperation is super, and is definitely the way forward also that we now have to reimagine of using these instruments to the best. Maybe not every time a physical meeting is necessary, at other moments we've now discovered it's really crucial. But what I'm worried about, and I'm thinking aloud here, what I'm worried about is the digital divide here. Because these different rhythms that you are talking about and these different forms of knowledge that are present in the city, it seems, we've been able to create new connections, maybe in an unexpected way. But sometimes I have the feeling it's still the usual suspects. And the usual suspects have in the meantime learned to collaborate much better than we did in the past. And I think as universities and with our institute, we're one of the actors in creating this Brussels ecology with regard to knowledge production and to have it function better. And it can always improve, and we have a long way to go there. But how to include these people that maybe don't have the instrument to play the music? We are trying to, from dissonance, all kinds of sounds and all kinds of different rhythms, finding each other. But there are still a lot of people who, we don't hear, or that they don't have the instrument. And then I'm not quite sure whether the digital tools that are to our disposal is sufficient and is the real way to go forward in including everyone. And there I would like, maybe I don't know whether the share will allow me to do that, but maybe I could ask you a question, a follow-up question, Caroline.
Can I do that or not?
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
I was struck by, I was waiting in the talk, it struck me that inclusion or include, it took a while before it appeared, and I thought that's what I'm going to say, where is inclusion here? And then it appeared, but it appeared include and control.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah. But there I would like to understand better what's the balance and how you interpret it, because indeed we are living difficult or challenging times in the sense that we don't only have these urban and even world scale challenges, and that mobilizing knowledge is a way to overcome this, and that we need all actors to work together, but we're also living in a time where the idea of knowledge itself is more and more contested. Maybe not only by those who don't have an instrument to play the rhythm, but there's something happening there. There's contestation of the idea itself of knowledge, of shared knowledge.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
So is it this what you mean with control, that we only certain voices in a certain way, or how we guide this process of co-creation? I would like to hear more on how you see this and how you how you tackle this challenge in Amsterdam.
So digital divide, very important to be aware of. Very important. On the other hand, lots of kids who don't have a lot of money learn to play guitar via the internet, or learn how to drum via the internet. So it's also a source. The has been democratization of knowledge. The internet plays a huge role. Kids in India, there's beautiful research by Sugata Mitra, where kids who can hardly read, who have access to nothing, suddenly learn a lot. So that doesn't mean there's no digital divide, but I think the internet or the online is not the issue. Actually, it's a whole new resource where many, many people, that you could never hear a lecture from Harvard or from a university or from a certain cooking chef, and now that's all accessible. So I think the internet is that's the really good news of the internet. That knowledge is not only in the universities anymore. It's really out there. We don't have that, we don't own it anymore. And I think that's great. It's really moved away from universities, which is an interesting question for universities. So who are universities? And I think their methodology development is the most important thing. Why did I put include and control? That has to do with what you said, we don't hear. So I noticed that the municipality of Amsterdam, we often don't hear people, we don't see people, we're not even aware of what is happening. And then you think of controlling the streets, but you don't hear what's happening in the streets. So, I mean, you have to first include before you can control. And often that is a very balance that is not taken very carefully.
But why would you need to control?
Well, cities want to control. That's to create safe space, no violence. I mean, the government has the primacy of violence. That's part of a democracy. So you control streets, you control squares, you control schools. A lot of things are controlled in our society. But it's a control that actually often even excludes people instead of includes people, or include what people know. So in the pandemic, I think the relation between inclusion and control became extremely clear. It's actually exclusion and control. So we don't tune, science doesn't tune, government doesn't tune, we don't tune to the need of people. We don't tune to the creativity of people. We don't tune to what people are making, how they are solving their issues. We just think we have to control. I mean, in Amsterdam, I don't know, we had in the pandemic a really bad situation. Everything was solved with control. It was not solved with inclusion. It was not solved with asking, how do you deal with it? Or what would you suggest? Or what would you do? Because it's crisis, so boom, we do control. And that excludes many, many people. But it also excludes a lot of talent. It's not only about being fair, it's also we need that talent. We need the talent of the people who are not seen, who are not heard, who don't have a place at the table.
And maybe a small follow-up question, if I'm still allowed. You interrupt me if I'm not allowed, then you tell me.
But maybe Lane knows a lot about tuning. Maybe you can answer.
Yes, I can answer now, or I can keep my answer for later.
Maybe let's go back to the question of inclusion, and I would like maybe to address one question to Peter, because we know that all the knowledge that the observatory produced is also used by different policymakers to improve this kind of challenge of inclusion, poverty, and so on. So I would like to know how and what is the place of the observatory in this ecosystem of knowledge production in Brussels, and if you can see some maybe improvement that can be done regarding this new challenge that the crisis brings to us.
Okay, so the observatory actually tries to answer some of the problems posed in the presentation. The messiness of the city means that you need a lot of little pieces brought together before you can analyze anything. So that's one of the objectives of the observatory, to collect all these little pieces you need. Another is that, well, the divide between science and politics. There also the observatory tries to play an important role as a hub or a turntable between actually the research, the policymakers and the field actors also, because they also have a lot of knowledge that we should use to make good policy. Well, the sharing of information is the main objective of the observatory. So that's what we do. We try to collect information from all different directions where we can find information on health and poverty, and we try to make them accessible to the public, to the actors in the field, and to the policymakers. So that's our main business, actually. And yeah, doing that, you empower the different spheres. You empower the citizens because they have the actual information they can use to go to their representatives, political representatives, do something about this problem. Actors in the field are empowered because they understand their situation or the ecosystem of the situation better to attack local problems or problems within their specific action field. And well, we are a public service, so that means we are part of the administration, and our main user are the politicians, actually. And so they need an observatory because it is so messy. Everything is so messy that they can't see through it, and they want to do evidence-based policy making. So they need an observatory to help them do this, because they can't do it on their own. And the link policy and research is sometimes too large. The difference is too large, that they need something intermediate like an observatory to translate all the research results that are very interesting and important to their policies and the making of their policy. So that's how the observatory plays its role, at least for the health and social topics in Brussels. Before I go further, I would like also to pick on the little side discussion that started. If you have to tune, that supposes that there's just one tune, I feel. So if there are different tunes, how do you tune, and to which tune do you tune? Because
I don't know I don't know of any environment where there's only one tune. There's always many tunes.
So it's very difficult to tune, actually.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
No.
So okay.
It requires
and what also is a problem, because it's true that the internet is an enormous source of knowledge that anybody can access, but there is also a lot of fake knowledge on the internet, and that has its own problems. So it's at the moment the science as a source of reliable information is a bit put aside, because it's much easier to check on the internet what is there as knowledge, and to take that knowledge and make your viewpoints on the basis of that, and not anymore on the clean science that before was the basis of knowledge. So there are two sides of this vast knowledge source that is the internet, I feel.
Do you want me to comment on this?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to make a distinction between disinformation and knowledge. Like, there was a really nice study executed by Nature, who compared Wikipedia with the Encyclopedia Britannica. Yeah? And there were more mistakes in Encyclopedia Britannica than in Wikipedia. It's a really nice article. I can really recommend it. So, it's an absolute illusion, I think, that a scientist knows more than a group of people who works together to find out what is true, which is the wisdom of Klaus by Sirovicki, which is often not well cited, but actually collaboration together with a good intention creates more solid knowledge than two scientists or one or five following a methodology. So that's the first one. Then, of course, with the algorithms we now have in the social networks, which is a different issue, we create bubbles of people where disinformation can really flourish. But here we have to talk about the way social networks are designed, controlled or not controlled, and how our normal media, the other media, deal with this. So I think that's a whole big issue. I mean, for a city, we have a whole program on this. It's a very big issue, but it's something else. And I think don't throw away the child with the bathwater here. I mean, the way that knowledge has been democratized, I cannot pronounce it. democratized? How do you say it?
We get your point.
You get what?
No one can pronounce it.
Something with democratization and then verb. It's just beyond anyone's imagination ever. And that's to really celebrate. Even though I work against privacy and all those things for many years, and I know things can go wrong, but a digital divide, yes, the division between rich and poor, very worrying how that's going. The way schools don't get the tools, terrible, ridiculous also. I agree with many of those things. But I prefer to look at the empowerment, and I think culture is a vast resource that government nor research takes serious. Look at the pandemic, it was not taken serious. Ridiculous. I mean, I come from culture, so I made a whole plan for my city. It was just thrown into the poubelle, en français. Because, you know, they were in the mode of control. And that's what happens with government. And it also has to do with people in power, and people in power think they know best. That's not true. When you have the power, you don't know best. If you have the power, you still have to listen. You still have to tune to all the tunes. Yeah, it's complex. So the higher you get in power, the better you have to be able to tune.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really, and we don't talk about leadership like this. Or we don't talk about governance like this.
No, because one of the reflexes from politics was we are going to use the scientific point of view on stuff, and therefore we are right.
Yeah.
And neglecting all the different tunes that are also there. So.
Well, that's one of the reasons with the cities we now say we want a research ecology, urban regional research ecology, because I don't know, probably here too, we have all these talking programs on television, and every politician can get a scientist that will, you know, be a megaphone for his or her opinion. So it actually devaluates science and the way they work, and I think also we should not collaborate with it like that, but it happens. So we think that what we now do, create a structured collaboration between the civil servants and the societal organizations and the researchers, just in a structural way, doing the dialogue, means you create resilience. And we just have to then to show to the politicians that there are people who are collaborating structurally over the years, who know about obesity, who know about certain blocks where children all the time don't get the right school advice. So it's really on the level of the street. And there is the fundamental research, I always argue with university people, is happening in the street, not at the university. It happens in the street. That's where the real complexity is.
Maybe we can ask Martin to react, and especially on the question of empowerment. And we know that associations such as IEB, BRAL, ARO, you are also producer of knowledge, but also you work as sharing knowledge. But I would like to know, for you, regarding empowerment and participation, what is the role of knowledge to move on, like, okay, I'm informed citizen, but then I will be against citizen, and then I will participate to the kind of co-decision to kind of project. So if you can situate Brussels in this kind of network reflection, what could be your diagnosis on this?
Yes, thank you. So I'm speaking, yes, not only as a grassroots organization, but as the Federation of Brussels Neighborhood Committees. And this means that we are in direct connection with Brussels inhabitants, and at least the one involved in local life and their neighborhoods, and question linked to urban development. And this is a key position in the public, to link these citizens with other levels of society. You've been speaking about the academic level, but also the political level, and how decisions are made for the cities. And this key position brings opportunities, but challenges as well. So let's start with the challenges. And we are facing many of them, as urban development is a complex matter infused with money and power. And for example, Brussels is currently witnessing a very quick gentrification process of all the central neighborhoods in the cities. And in this context, no one denies a right for the citizens to have a voice in this process anymore. but experience shows that it remains very difficult for the one in charge to let go even a tiny part of their power on those matters. However, we are coming from a far worse situation to the point that the term Bruxellisation is known worldwide to describe a state in urban planning where there isn't any kind of control in private interests and the maintenance of some sort of architectural unity in the city. So Brussels has been famous for this, particularly in the 70s. And in that context, that associations such as BRAL, IEB, or ARO were created almost 50 years ago. But even after 45 years, this position is very fragile. And if there is a formal process for the citizen to give views on the way the city is built, those views weigh very little in the final decision in delivering permits. On top of that, there are new processes created to avoid this phase of public consulting. And even for grassroots organizations working on urbanism for a very long time, it's quite difficult to have funding, public funding, to keep working in those. So many challenges in this topic, but kind of opportunities as well. And Brussels is blooming with a rich local life, and its inhabitants have shown numerous occasions the richness of their knowledge and expertise. And as soon as the citizen is perceived as an ally in building the city and valorized for his grounded knowledge of local life, real synergies can take place. But this calls for a work on the long run, and too often the citizen participation is summed up to a very simple validation of already made choices. And the situation worsened today with the recent competition at the European level between private consulting offices in charge of participation. And on several occasions, we are seeing today that this part of project are just a bunch of Zoom meeting, and that's it. And the people are organizing this online without proper knowledge of the neighborhood they are working on, and Brussels' history and complexity. So this is far too little to allow citizens to voice their concern regarding projects that have a direct impact on their lives. So I think it's necessary to change the paradigm here and to stop seeing the citizen as obstacles in the creation of the city, but as important actor. And one way of doing it is popular education. So the popular education is quite specific to Belgium. It's based on the principle of continuous education, continuous learning, and it allows for a vivid network of associations to work with adults on complex issues in order to let them become critical citizens. It isn't surprising that this popular education is managed by the Ministry of Culture. More than many others, the Ministry of Culture welcomes critical discourse and value them for their capacity to nourish a strong democracy. So it's by giving a proper place to citizens and their knowledge and allowing grassroots organizations to work with them on the long run that complex urban issues can be tackled down and bridges can be made with academic knowledge, locally rooted knowledge, and political choices for the city. So just to finish and to come back to your opening questions, it's by creating such spaces for the citizens that not only you allow an effective sharing of knowledge, but an exchange going both sides. And by valuing citizen point of view and knowledge, you allow for real process of co-decision and power sharing. And in doing so, people not only participate, but remain engaged in local life past the events that brought them together in the first place. And this is how you end up with more than 90 neighborhood committees being members of our federation. However, you still need from those in charge of urban planning to be ready to listen, to be ready to tune to what those people have to say.
Thank you. Maybe Dirk or Caroline, you want also to react on this question of sharing knowledge, but also maybe I'm wrong, but I think, Dirk, you were also following a citizen science initiative that's also the citizen is also part of the production of the knowledge. Mm-hmm. So what do you think, Caroline on this kind of proposal, and maybe Dirk also. What do you think about this kind of initiative, and what kind of network we can build up on this, and maybe to improve the governance of the city in the future?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll link it to the question that I still wanted to ask to Caroline, because Martin raised an important point here, to use this vibrancy and this energy that is present in amongst citizens who organize themselves in civil society. But then how do policymakers deal with this? Does it get, are there some usine à gaz, as they say in French, researches put up or consortia put up, and then a lot of people speak on behalf of, and it becomes kind of token representation? Or is it genuinely taking on board what is happening on the ground and what are the interests in neighborhoods? And there the difficulty is that one neighborhood doesn't have the same interest as the other neighborhood. And another difficulty is that in the same neighborhoods there can be totally opposing visions of what is more important, safeguarding nature, for instance, or building more social housing. So that's not always easy. And then my question is actually to you, when we are talking about control and sharing knowledge and constructing dialogue, you are working for the city. To what extent, what's the space for maneuvering, for orchestrating, in the sense that I don't think you're someone who says what needs to happen, but that you want to bring all these tunes and rhythms together. But isn't there sometimes someone tapping on your shoulder saying, no, stop, we don't go there, or this? And maybe that's also a situation in which Peter can find himself as a, you said that your civil servants are able to put their name and take positions, and I'm not sure whether in Belgium we are at that stage yet, whether civil servants can do that, whether that's in our political culture. We mostly need to listen, actually. Well, I'm maybe overstating it a bit, but so how do you see the control and giving voice, and where's the balance here?
Well, I really appreciate, Martin, that you talked about, there's a lot of fake participation, and a lot of architects or policymakers, think there's a sort of a tabula rasa. I just draw it, and then you just live with what I draw. So that has to change, and that's very clear, but it's very complex, because, the group of citizens who is there today may be a different group than the group tomorrow. On the other hand, I see a lot of my colleagues using your argument. This is not a real representation, and this is not, there will be opposing interests. But I always, I never do things myself, but I always am really deeply involved with certain projects. So I will give you one example. We made a food forest in Amsterdam Zuidoost, which is the most diverse neighborhood that we have. And this was a group of people from all ages, they're really from 15 to 85, from the different communities, so and the Ghanese, and the Suriname, and the Dutch, and the Chinese, very mixed group. And they were also a learning community. They were learning about, the ecology of the neighborhood. And they started to do interventions in 55 hectares, quite big, to make the nature more resilient, more biodiverse. So they would plant some flowers here and a tree there and a thing there. So this was owned by the government, this ground. So it sounds like really easy, yeah? Well, till today, it's now 5 years, this is a very big issue, because is it a social project? Because we have really good inclusive group there. Is it an ecological project? Is it a planning project? Is it a climate project? All these different departments. And we see every corner of the municipality. I don't know, I think we are over 60 bureaucrats now who have been there. It's amazing, it's amazing. And also the way the community is treated by my colleagues, it's very embarrassing. Embarrassing, which has to do with tuning. They don't know how to tune. Certain people do. So there was a great guy, one of the gardeners. He just loved this community. He would go with them. He would go buy plants with them. He was put off the project, because he got too close. So I don't know, you must notice that too, Martin, when you, as a civil servant, you get too much involved with the community, you become dangerous for the colleagues. So you're discredited. So there is we can talk a lot about this. It's the walls, the big reason why things don't happen, despite so many people of goodwill, and hardly ever a real clash between neighbors, hardly ever. My colleagues, civil servants, they think there are all the time clashes, really much less than you think, is because the government or the governance structures we have don't know how to listen, don't know how to let go, don't know how to trust. You're not allowed to make a mistake, so we all make mistakes. Let the community do it. Let them create it. And then we had, oh, that was also terrible. Then I will stop, sorry. I can talk the whole evening about this one example. But that was terrible because they put we have this organization, PANDA, which is the mental handicapped people, on the mowing machines. Yeah? So we have drawings of what we have to do, so then the mowing machines come. But the mowing machines don't know the flowers and don't know the trees. But they put the mental handicapped people on the mowing machines. Which is terrible, because as residents, you don't want to talk against them. Because they are really kind people. And they say, we don't want to kill the tree and the flowers, but we have to do it. Vroom, and there they go. Well, this has been mown down 22 times. This is very many times for a community. While the old lady walks suddenly 5 kilometers, which she never walked before, because she wants to see her flower grow. And the kids in the neighborhood, on the wrong side of the digital divide, suddenly learn about plants. Oh, that is an educational project. Another department gets involved. Oh my God. It's really, it's very hard to make things happen. It's just really hard. It's really hard. So that's why I think, in a way, we have to go beyond those structures. Open research is one way, you know. Everybody can contribute. Just do it. But with this, it's hard because, I can talk hours. Sorry, it's terrible.
Maybe
never give up is the only thing I can say. Never give up. Just don't give up. Just try again. Yeah. What else can you do? As long as you live, just keep on trying. Don't give up. Find a new way.
Caroline, on this positive
what else
energy
can
that
you
you
do?
want to share, I just
maybe
regarding the question of fragmentation of the administration, this is a fact, but also city is also made by people, by diversity or multi-diversity. So I would like maybe raise a question specifically to Lane, because I think there is common challenge between academia and sharing knowledge, and also with the cultural sector. How can we appeal to younger people, to diverse socio-cultural backgrounds, to come and to participate to this production of knowledge, to the sharing of knowledge? So how maybe the cultural sector can learn to us some kind of best practice experiences to share?
Okay, I don't think I can learn you something, but I can share some experiences. And I would just maybe thank you, Caroline. I work for Metix, and we are a production house for urban music. And actually our baseline is moving music, because we work a lot in the streets. We go in public space. And I think maybe it's time to change our baseline to tuning the city, because that could also work for what we do. So we create music, bands and performances where we work a lot with what lives in the city, the cultures, generations and whatever. We bring it together, we don't play traditional music, and we mingle it and try to make a new kind of music, or a new kind of event. And then we also work a lot with rhythm, with very different rhythms, because every culture has another rhythm. And it takes time to realize that the rhythm is different, and then so they have to play another rhythm. And it takes even more time to adapt and tune those rhythms. But once it's tuned and you listen to it, you actually don't realize it's natural. So it takes time to get it, but then once it's there, it's natural, and people don't even ask the question, the rhythm is different. Mm-hmm. They don't hear the different rhythm anymore. So that as an introduction, and also how then can we, I used as a starting point, if we want to involve other audiences in sharing knowledge, I think we have a little problem before, is that we don't know each other anymore. Even if we have a lot of digital connections, I think the whole COVID situation showed, especially also in Brussels, that we have quite a societal problem because we don't know how to reach, we don't reach all the people around us. We live in different networks, we live in different, we listen to different media we have. And so the whole vaccination strategy was quite a difficult one, to use a nice word, because we don't know how to reach those people. We think we reach them, but we don't. And so knowing the other, we have to know the other before we can share our knowledge. And if then, I think, how can we get to know the other? We have to look for what we share. And then I would like to talk about 3 things, or 3 assets. It's our children, it's public space, and it's food. So what we share is our children, and then I think in Brussels we have a huge asset coming on, the generation that is now 10, 12 years. They don't see that they are diverse by themselves. They don't have 1 or 2 cultural backgrounds, they have several. They have combined socio-economical positions, they speak different languages, and so the way we think is diversity is 1, maybe 2, and then we have 1. For them it is 1, they are included, and so they will look at this whole world in a very different way, and it's a huge asset, but we have to keep that asset an asset, and it cannot become a danger because our institutions are not ready for this. And we have to, our role is that help institutions to make them ready for this hybrid generation that is coming up, and that is not just Belgo-Moroccan or speaking French at home and English at school or whatever. They are diverse by themselves. I don't know how to. I'm not an academic, so I can't put nice terms on words.
You can.
Then secondly, an asset for me is public space. What we share is public space, and we have to go into that public space. Dare to go into that public space. Policy has to allow us to go into that public space. It's very limited. Again, COVID showed it. Public space in cities is very limited, already very crowded. We think again that we share the space, but actually we live one next, we share it. There you have skaters, there you have people sitting. So we're not sharing, we're just dividing. And we have to really work, and there I think culture can be a huge actor in that. We have to work on this shared common space and fill it in together, using what is living there and trying to combine it and make something new. A lot of traditions, cultural traditions are living here. It's again a huge asset, but how can we bring that together so that people recognize partly in what is happening, but also a little bit like, this is not really me, it's also something else. So we really have to work on that public space. That's what we have to do. And then thirdly, food. I think that's really, if you want to share knowledge and if you want to bring people together, you have to have food. Because we all have to eat, we all love to eat, and if there's food, people start talking, and if there's music of Metics, it would be even better.
Wow. Yes.
I'm sorry that the time is running, so I would suggest now we open the question to the audience, and then we can have also a dialogue with so I don't know if there are already some comments or some question that want to be raised, your panelists. In the back, I can't see, so if
It'd be nice if we have some light in the back.
if you can put, make a big sign, no?
Yeah, nice. We get
Okay,
light.
so I will ask you to react on this 3 proposal of public space,
Very nice.
food, and I have a blackout now.
Public space, food, and children.
And children, the most important ones.
I think it's beautiful how you phrased it, Elaine. Just couldn't do it better. What's interesting that I did a study with students on what people share in a neighborhood in The Hague with a really diverse, super diverse neighborhood. And they said children, food, and sports. They didn't say public space. So the movement, the dancing, and the sports maybe is the one I would add. But I think it's beautiful how you put it. It's true. It's what we need. Then, the food industry is one of the things that we don't address. It's very hard to put a policy in government. Well, it's an amazing big issue for the next decade. So, apart from the social, that's the thing. What do you think? I think it's amazing.
Well, I would like to have on that list also air quality.
Yeah.
And I think, well, we're walking, you're still, sorry, we were said that we're allowed to not wear the mask here,
Yeah.
but we're practiced now, but maybe in some locations in Brussels, we should actually put the mask when we're outside, and that's something unacceptable. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate on. You can explain the data, share the data, what are the consequences for the health. But there again, unfortunately, not everyone is that knowledgeable about what's happening. And there's an ongoing citizen science project, Curieusinaire. The results will be made public in a month. I hope that will change things a bit. And also, but that relates also to food as an example, healthy food. How can you, in a sustainable way, create it in a city area? I think that are indeed mobilizing elements. And if I may, just one minute still, but then I'll be talking as an academic, really, with regard to research that we need, or a research infrastructure that we need. What I felt very unpleasant during the COVID pandemic, that even if we have a lot of data, it's not always the data that we need. And there's a lot of survey research going on, for instance, but not representative for all kinds of reasons. And there's now the universities together have made a decision. We are together going to try and make a Belgian online probability panel. So we're first going to go and using the central registry of addresses of the government, make a representative sample, and then convince people who are chosen in that to really participate into an infrastructure that they participate through their computers. If they don't have a computer, we give them a computer, or we give them facilities by phone, and investing in this. Investing particularly in Brussels in this, and particularly in those neighborhoods where it's very difficult to get a good participation rate. Also, linguistic situations.
I want to ask you a question. Because I think, Lane, what you said, how to make the institutions ready for this new super diverse youth, for whom diversity and multiculturalism is really a given. What can you do as a researcher to make the institutions ready?
Well, I think we really need not just researchers, but also policymakers. We need this is just one example, but I think a very important example. If then we go into the discourse of evidence-based policymaking, then we really need to have access to correct data. And then, unfortunately, that has a bit to do with the Belgian logic and the Belgian structure also. The Flemish government comes with money, Fédération Wallonie-Bruxelles, okay, for Wallonia. And then Brussels, but that's complicated, getting data collected here and getting people to participate, and how are we going to do it? Well, yeah, that's all the reason why we have to invest now. And it will be an investment. It will cost money to go there with research efforts that normally we've kind of given up. Commercial polling agencies don't do it anymore. And I hope the reaction won't be, it's impossible, we won't do it, because then we're going to do blind policy making, and then and that's what I'm a bit afraid for. Then a lot of people who claim to know how the situation is, or who speak on behalf of, can do it without being, there's no validity check there. We can't verify what is really, what's objectively going on. So that I hope that Brussels will invest in this instrument, also the other Belgian authorities, that they will make sure that it's not just Brussels who has to take care of this, but that that's in the interest of everyone. Sorry, that this is my little...
Yeah, very good. Well, maybe you agree.
Yeah, well, it's true what he says. So the National Health Interview Survey actually is every 4 years there's an enormous survey, and the survey sample for Brussels is getting more and more not representative, because they can't reach the people that are in socioeconomic the most difficult situation. They And that's not only because they don't do the effort, they want to do the effort, but sometimes those people just don't want to participate. And that's also a question we should address, because it's a question of trust. Those people don't trust science, they don't trust government for all kinds of reasons. Mostly because they are in a situation that is not good, and they blame society, and so science, and so policies.
What do you think, Marta?
So on the specific question of this, I mean, I work more with the citizens, so it's more difficult for me to have this idea of how to draft this kind of research. But I totally agree that public space are very, very important. Today, you say that those 3 levels were very important, and there is a very limited space in Brussels. The land is very scarce, and there is this huge competition today to what you are doing with what is still available as land in Brussels, and this competition between housing, keeping public spaces, or keeping place with a good environment, and place where you can have this, what you are describing, this big park and people investing those. And we have a few of those still in Brussels. La Friche Josaphat, for example, it has been invested by citizens for years now, but you have those massive projects of housing arriving, and it's quite difficult to keep a balance and to keep proper public spaces in the city.
But maybe
Helene's
Peter,
going to say something.
yeah, Peter, can you just maybe, if you have like kind of ideas to share to reinstall trust between science institution, politics, and people who are the most excluded from this kind of...
It's investing in them, so that's what we're not doing. We need to invest much more in the people that are living in the most difficult situations, because they're always at the bottom of everything. So we must address this, and we can't address this at the same way as we address other parts of the population, because those methods don't work with this population. We must go much closer to them, and so that means have people to go to those people and try to get them with you in thinking, in participating. But that means investing. And so now usually we make one policy for everybody, but that doesn't work. Always for the same people, that doesn't work. So we must invest more to make policies for them that are also working. That is the theory of the universal, the proportionate universalism. So you have to do policies and good things for everybody, but you have to the investment should be proportionate to the needs of the different layers in your society. And this is very, very difficult. And for me, I'm working at observatory now 16 years, and the social inequalities, they keep rising, keep getting larger and larger, and nobody seems to know how should we attack this, because those people, well, when you have to tune, there are loud tunes and there are very, very, very soft tunes, and the loud tunes are picked up very easily if VOCA and the great voices in media and so on, they are picked up and they are followed, but the little voices that nobody hears, we don't take account of them. If we, for instance, during the pandemic, everything that had to do with the lockdown was based on a situation of people in at least medium situation socioeconomically, because people on the low end socioeconomically, they can't go in their garden because they don't have a garden. They live with too much people in too little places. They don't have nearby, they don't have green space that is accessible. They live in street canyons, not in good managed territory. So their housing is bad. So the parents don't have the capacity to help their children do their homework. So everything that we based our policy in the lockdown on was not usable for this population. And that is a big problem, and that is one of the reasons why they won't listen, why they won't come to vaccinate, because they don't think about us, so we're not participating. So that is something we really, really should attack.
So before concluding...
We still need to hear Lane, sorry.
Sorry?
I need to hear Lane. Lane is going to say something.
Yeah, sorry, Lane.
I need to hear her, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
and
I
then
just
I will
wanted-
ask if there is someone in the
I'll be
audience.
very
Go
short.
ahead.
I just wanted to answer what can academic world do to work with this diversity. And then I wrote a little booklet on how cultural institutions work with the whole complex policy system, and we called it How to be Creative in Chaos. It could have been How to be Creative in a Mess also. But what I then think, what we then realized, and one of the recommendations was there is almost no academic work on the cultural sector as a whole. It's a community affair, so it's linked to languages. And if we're searching in Brussels on how is culture working, how is the public, there is no academic work on that. Because universities are also organized in this, there's Brussels Studies Institute, which is great. This is the only one actually, with Michel, who did something for us. But so, actually, academics should maybe not copy the political structures anymore and go against them, and also in research try to go beyond this complexity and beyond this clivage of community affairs, and this will help then those children that don't.
But apparently there are not even data on the children. The whole groups are not in the data.
No, because data are separate. Yeah. You have data on education on a Flemish level, and you have data on education on a French level, but you don't have data on a Brussels level. And as long as academics will copy this, we will not have this data. But maybe I'm naive.
Nice to hear. We got a job to do.
Research has to be funded, and one of the great funding instances of research is politics.
Of course.
So for researchers to go against the mainstream policies is very, very difficult.
That's why you have to be an artist.
Yeah.
Okay. Last chance.
Yes, yeah, nice. Someone saying something. Yeah. Two people. Nice.
First of all, thank you. It was so inspiring. I still need to process everything.
Wait, we can't hear you very well, and someone will give you a micro to be more easy. Yeah.
You hear me better now?
Yes, very good.
Okay, so as I said, first of all, thank you. It was very inspiring. And I still need to process everything that has been said tonight. There's just like one idea that I just can't shake is like we talk about comparing and sharing with other cities, but there is like one specificity of Brussels that is so unique is the institutional context that is absolutely Kafkaesque. Kafkaesque, I don't know how to say it right now. It's a complexity that I think not many cities share in Europe, that's for sure. And that makes it almost impossible for anything that could be grassroots movement or initiative, even from the academic field or from the civil society, to actually reach out to this institution. I mean, anyone who studied constitutional law will know that it's just so complex that everything that has been said tonight, I'm just thinking like, it will never reach to the top. That's literally like, maybe you can shed some light on how wrong I am. That would that would help me sleep better, actually. So thank you again for everything tonight.
Maybe Dirk wants to.
Yeah, I hear what you say and I understand what you say. I'm not sure whether I entirely agree. There's both sides. Peter was totally right. If we want to do research, for instance, we need funding, and then if you kick too much against the people who need to give you money, then probably they will say, no, we're not giving you money. At the same time, that doesn't make you powerless either. And I think in a way, what has grown, and that's also the history of Brussels Studies Institute, Brussels Academy, other initiatives, a lot of grassroots movement. If citizens organize, and coordinate, you cannot stop this. You cannot stop this. You have to go with the flow. And that's also the strength of Brussels. Okay, it's an institutional lasagna, and probably
spaghetti.
Or spaghetti, yeah. And will probably stay for a while. But there's also a Brussels reality and a Brussels identity. Even if we live in our own bubbles, a lot of people are proud to be from Brussels. And actually take pride also in the fact that we're intermingled and that we're the Zinneke. So this is all creating a force, and there I share very much the ideas of Eric Corain, who says, yeah, you have to look more at the cities, and I think that's something that resonates with you as well, Carly. You have to look at the cities and not that much at the nations. It's this community that's real and that's creating. That is so. Yeah, I'm maybe not really answering your question, but I'm not that pessimistic as the question seems to sound. So sorry.
What's the question?
Yeah. Can you just wait for the micro and then, yeah, thank you.
J'ai un peu le sentiment.
Oui, oui, ça fonctionne.
J'ai un peu le sentiment que la tonalité dominante ce soir a été un petit peu bisounours. Bisounours. Il faudrait que les scientifiques se réunissant, se contactant en réseau, etc., développent une recherche, que cette recherche soit aussi à l'écoute des tonalités des voix des citoyens, que tout cela soit transféré éventuellement par l'intermédiaire d'observatoires en direction des politiques, et les politiques devraient ainsi mieux découvrir les voies de la transition vers la ville du futur et la ville écologique. Ça me semble quand même une vision qui fait largement fi de choses qui ne sont pas seulement quelques tonalités diverses parmi les citoyens, mais quand même des oppositions frontales entre des groupes de citoyens. Et ces oppositions frontales entre les groupes de citoyens sont évidemment relayées aussi dans les rapports de force politique au niveau du gouvernement ou au niveau des hommes politiques. Il me semble qu'on oublie tout ça, et même les chercheurs, c'est fort bien de les mettre en réseau, mais la science n'est pas neutre quand même, ne fût-ce que par les questions qu'elle se pose, ne fût-ce que par les chiffres dont elle dispose ou dont elle ne dispose pas. Le simple fait de collecter certaines données plutôt que d'autres est généralement significatif d'objectifs qui sont donnés ou qui ne sont pas donnés à la science et à la collecte de l'information. Donc je crois que tout ça devrait quand même être beaucoup plus fondamentalement pris en considération, et même quand Martin Rosenfeld parle des citoyens, je trouve que c'est encore un raccourci, parce que même à l'intérieur d'un quartier, il peut très bien y avoir des groupes de gens qui ont des intérêts divergents, entre urbaniser pour du logement social un terrain ou le garder en espace vert parce que les gens ont besoin d'espace. Il y a des oppositions qui peuvent être des oppositions frontales, et ça n'est pas une meilleure relation ou une meilleure organisation entre les citoyens, la science et les politiques qui vont résoudre de manière univoque ce genre de confrontation.
So we were too consensual. So I guess the question is, apart from starting the revolution, where's conflict in the picture, in the analysis? Conflict, power.
Well, I think we spoke the whole evening about conflict and power. I think we have been talking about what we do. We live in environments with structural conflict and structural abuse of power every day. In the street, in my work environment, both at the municipality as well as in the university. There's structural abuse of power. There's structural exclusion of people. Whether it's on skin, of poverty, or language, many reasons to exclude people. I think we have been all trying, how do we sustain in a world where there is structural abuse of power, structural disinformation, structural mafia ruling the scene, structural war and drugs, and you ask us to keep confidence. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to find how can we survive this? And how can we give it to the children? This great, super diverse world. I appreciate you do this comment, but now I get emotional. I do this talk because I'm really fed up with it. Here. And the bad thing is that even if you're fed up, it's not good enough. Because I can start a lawsuit, yeah? It will take 5 years. If I now am a mafia, I can put my money in one morning through 10 countries. The judicial department will take 10 years to follow the same acts of me in my morning. So we are living in a really weird time, where the logic is lost. So we try to go back to logic, whether it's in the streets, that gentrification is a really bad thing, or whether it's the super diverse children that our institutions cannot deal with, or whether it's the health and the poverty figures that the politicians can't deal with because it's too messy, or whether it's the research he wants to do and he doesn't get it funded. So I think I really appreciate your question, because this is what is at stake. We try to create hope in a world that's running really fast, completely out of control. And everybody knows we have only 8 years and we go over 2 degrees. Yeah, we do a biennale and we try to make hope. Of course we make hope. What else can we do? We are alive. That's why I showed the picture of Wuhan. Only 6 weeks, pollution goes. You can have clean air if the cars stop tomorrow in Brussels. Only takes 6 weeks. Well, why don't we stop the cars? Only handicapped people get to take a car. No one else. We know what we can do, but it doesn't happen because everybody knows best in their own little bubble. So what we are doing here the whole evening is creating hope, also for all the young people here. That's what we need to do. It's our job. Every day. If I don't know how to save a food forest, we're working for 5 years. Of course we go on, every time again. Another bureaucrat, another rule. Why not? But it's even worse than that. I mean, they're creating war in Ukraine. I mean, I have to stop, sorry. Sorry.
Okay, so...
It's what it came from the heart. Thank you for the question. I got my heart out.
I probably will leave 30 seconds to everyone if you want to conclude or to arrive and sum up to the question of reimagine also the city. And then I will be obliged to close the session if you want to. It's not, of course. Martin, yeah.
Yeah, just I start because it's an opportunity for me as well just to say a word about the citizen. So of course I've been speaking about citizen in a very general term. The idea is I don't try to say that there isn't conflict, and of course there is a lot of conflict, particularly if you look in the central neighborhood of Brussels, in the popular neighborhood, where you have this gentrification process taking place and very hard opposition between different projects for the cities. And what we are trying to do, and when I speak about citizen, this is mostly what we are doing, is trying to give a voice to the voiceless in this process. And many people are speaking and have different projects for the city. There are many tunes in the air. Some of these tunes are very easy to listen to, but some people have less opportunity to being heard. And what we are trying to do is work with them and to help them in this process and to be a bit more vocal about this, about the people suffering gentrification, having to move outside of the neighborhood. They've been living here for a very long time. So sorry if I've been quick when I speak about the citizen. This is, of course, the citizen I want to speak about. And if I have to say something about the project for the city, well, for me, definitely is this idea of how you make everyone participate in a project for the city, and not only those that already are being able to speak and to have their voice heard, but how to start from the bottom with the people, the citizen, and you do something with this voice as well.
Lynn?
I'm not going to say a lot. I like the idea to end that we create hope, and we should do that. We should continue doing that and trying to do it the most possible together. and let's reclaim the streets.
We shouldn't be naive. You're very right that we have the solution with what we talked about. That is the solution for all societal problems. No, but we have to have hope, because without hope we don't do anything anymore. And for me, what is important is we have to tackle the real problems and not the fake problems. So if I listen to policies today, I hear companies complaining that their personnel wants too big a flexibility, and that are the problems that are addressed. But that aren't problems. The problems are the poor people living in conditions that are inhumane in our rich city of Brussels. So that's the problem, and that's what we should talk about and do things about.
And Dirk, to conclude?
Yeah, well, but maybe to build upon that, I think that one of the big challenges is to make sure that all our schools are of good quality, which is one of the big challenges these days, and not only in Brussels, but particularly in Brussels. But also I would want to say something, yeah, I don't know, is it optimistic, but how is the reading? I think that Brussels political actors are an allies on a lot of these topics. So you can criticize undoubtedly on details, but those who are in power on the Brussels level, I personally, you can disagree with me, I have confidence in that. Only they also have to maneuver in the space where there are other levels of power and counter forces. And I refrain from saying anything political, but there's definitely a different visions of what Brussels is and that Brussels should be. And there also are local political actors are allies to a great extent, because I don't want us to give the impression either that it's kind of everyone against politics. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. But there are divergent forces, and I would definitely like to thank you, Caroline, for your inspiring words and the discussion that it heated, and questions from the audience, and take the opportunity to also to invite you to attend the next events of the festival, where we're celebrating 12 years of Brussels Studies Institute, and I think we had a wonderful kickoff tonight.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Indeed, the next day of our festival will be about the publishing and locally publishing, and it will be run by Brussels Studies. And if you have to have more information, you can collect your sticker and just scan your QR code, and you will have all the detailed program on it. And if you are also interested in receiving and subscribe to our newsletter, you can fill in the form that has been disposed here on the table. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you, Caroline. And see you in March for the Brussels Studies Day. Thank you.